Welcome to the Remington Podcast, where we take a deep dive into all things ammunition. I'm your host, Audrey Mays, and today I'm joined by Research and Development Engineer Logan Henry. First time on the podcast, Marketing Specialist Andy Kloss, and Head of Research and Development Engineering, John Langenfeld.
Happy to be here.
We are going to talk about all of our offerings in upland bird loads. Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today. We have quite a few.
We do. There's a big variety across the board. So we got a lot to discuss, a lot of variety, a lot of gauges, and a lot of differences between them all. So
yeah, as we talked about before, shot shell shooters, they're a little choosy. You know, everyone likes what they like when it comes to shot shell. So, we got a load for everybody, I would say. So let's start off at the beginning.
Sure.
If you're gonna start upland hunting, what are you trying to choose here?
I mean, I think at the bottom of the category, not necessarily I don't mean like quality, but I mean like energy wise and size of the game that you're shooting. So if you're talking quail, if you're talking doves, and maybe some throw some small game, whether it's squirrels or rabbits, and you're going to use a shotgun, that's our game load. Very general purpose, good velocity. From a payload standpoint, it's going to be less relative to the other loads that we're going to talk about. So for an example, in 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch, you're talking an ounce a shot. The biggest that we've got, 6s. So you're easily talking, if you wanted to shoot some pheasants with that, you could. Some people probably would move on up to 1 1/4 and things like that, especially if you're hunting wild birds. But we've got 7.5s and 8s. So you're looking more at lower payloads, smaller shot sizes. A good variety in the offerings of the number of gauges. So we got 4, 10, 20, 16, and 12. So probably from a cost standpoint too, that's going to be more economical. But solid loads. I know before we kicked off live here, Logan was talking about shooting game loads all day long at doves.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's what you use.
That's what I use. I mean, I don't think you have to buy your super shot or anything like that. I think a game load covers it really well. I mean, just make sure you aim in front of them, depending on how far away they are, and you'll kill them.
Yep.
No problem.
What do you like? What a particular shot size in dove hunting? 7.5s to 8s.
Probably 7.5s,
You like
8s. Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, I think game load covers a lot of people, but think about it: lower payload, smaller animals, squirrel, dove, rabbits, quail, stuff like that. Is where I'd go with game load.
Would you call that like a softer load for softer animals?
You could say that. Yeah, like I said, it's mild recoil. Kind of similar to a target load. What people would shoot trap or skeet. You're kind of talking similar shot sizes. They're going to go up into the 6 size, but you got a lot of 7.5s and 8s, similar velocity levels, so not a lot of recoil. They're not big thumpers, but they get the job done.
Yeah, I mean, you got a quail. A quail's a very soft bird. You don't want to just, whenever you shoot them, fluff ball them.
Oh, well, God, no. The meat is,
that's premium
delicious.
stuff.
Yeah.
So, I think a game load would be perfect for that, too. 1 ounce a shot. You're not going to put too many pellets in them. You're not going to tear up your meat.
And in terms of, where you're shooting that bird with a game load, what's the distance there for you guys?
I mean, you could probably shoot a dove up to 50. I mean, I don't see why you couldn't shoot it at 50 yards.
As long as you know where to place it.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to lead it a lot whenever it's at 50 yards and flying.
There's nothing about those loads that make them super close range. They're just normal loads.
Yeah, I mean, they're 1 ounce at 1290. 1290 is pretty good velocity for your dove or for your quail for sure.
That's 1 ounce 1290 in target. Sporting clay loads like the STS. That's a go-to long range, give me, super confident 60, 70 yard crosser type. So it's the same thing, except it's got softer shot in it.
Yeah. So what level of antimony is probably in there?
So we use 6 in premium.
Okay.
We do some stuff with 4. And so across the board, except for copper plated, we're using 2. Yep.
Okay. And we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but sometimes people say that you want that softer shot, so it'll kind of do some damage and drop them
a little bit, and damage your game a little more. So I'd say that's kind of a debate that can go both ways. That's probably one where your hunters would definitely go both ways on. Some people may think that way, and some people may want harder. So obviously, when you add more antimony, your shot gets a little harder, deforms less, which means that your pattern deforms less as it goes out in the field. So, long range birds, I would say you're shooting your pheasant late season where they get up at 40 yards and start flying. In my opinion, obviously I said this is a controversial debate.
Yeah.
I want the 4% whenever I'm shooting a wild bird in late season.
And there's a difference between wild birds
Oh, yes.
and
Oh man.
Oh, yeah.
like farm raised birds, right? Especially if you're shooting pheasant.
Absolutely.
So what, if that's like your entry level, good all around load, what would be the next step up?
So we've got what we call heavy dove loads.
Okay.
So the heavy dove, branded toward dove is going to give you a little bit more shot. So, but it's only in 12 and 20, which is probably, a majority of what people are using. But you're going to go from an ounce and 12 gauge up to an ounce and an eighth. It's going to drop the velocity down a little bit. These are 1255 instead of a 1290 and 12 gauge. And then your 20 gauge, you're going to go from 7/8 at 1225 up to an ounce. So heavy dove's giving you more shot, and you're going to slow them down just a little bit. So it's more pellets in the air. Again, kind of like Logan was talking about antimony content. What a person really wants. We've got a variety because somebody may feel like more pellets in the air is going to be better than velocity. So if you want more pellets, you go to heavy dove, but they're very, very similar. Again, you could use a heavy dove load for shooting squirrels, shooting quail, stuff like that. So there's some overlap definitely in the usage. You're not getting into a category that's just an overpowered load for what you're doing.
Yeah, I know Andy likes to shoot a heavy dove.
Yeah, that's my go-to. Just the standard lead 7.5s.
Yeah.
I feel like just from my experience, the 8 shot for me, I just feel if I hit them good, it shreds them up a lot, like what we were talking about earlier. So that's why I like the 7.5s. And plus, shooting 7.5 with clays, having really good luck with that.
Yeah.
And it's just like you stay consistent, right? So-
Yeah, and you gotta, protect that breast meat for those jalapeno poppers.
Oh, those are the best. Haven't even started.
So just because we call them heavy dove doesn't mean that you only have to use them for dove.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I shoot those quail hunting
yeah.
a lot.
Yeah. And does anyone here grouse hunt?
No, but I've like back home, a bunch of my buddies, they always go to Pennsylvania and they do like a deer camp and a grouse camp, and the grouse hunting towards, eastern Ohio and into Pennsylvania is always really cool, but it is tough hunting from what I've heard. I'm not sure if you guys have.
Yeah, it's a lot of hiking, like a lot of hiking. And they're mostly in the hills.
Yep, hills,
Yeah.
and it's just super, super thick.
Yeah.
And you can't even, sometimes you'll flush a bird, but you can't even get your gun up because it's so thick.
And they scare
you.
the pants
Yeah.
off you. Like, it's crazy. But I would say that like shooting a grouse is akin to shooting a pheasant in terms of like size and density of bird. No.
I don't know that I don't think they're that big. No.
I think they're more like
Grouse?
I think they're more like a quail.
I think they're smaller. Yeah.
What the heck?
That's why they're so hard to hit.
I've hunted, maybe it's area. I've hunted grouse in Colorado. They're like big boys.
Oh.
In the mountains?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So maybe, I don't know, like
Never done it.
sage
Never
grouse?
done
Yeah,
it.
I've been
No.
experienced in this category. Basically, every upland hunting other than this, I've been there, done that. but
Yeah.
not grouse.
That's funny. That's cool though. But yeah, so heavy dove, not just for dove. Yeah, good to know. I know that, sometimes we name things and then people get confused. So I just want to
Yeah.
drive that one home.
Well, and we try to do that to help consumers because if you're inexperienced, you don't know, and maybe it's your, hey, my buddy said, hey, you want to come dove hunting? I'm going to go to Walmart, and he's like, hey, go get you some shells, and you really don't know. Like I said, if you're inexperienced, you go in a store and you're looking at all this stuff. What am I doing? I'm going dove hunting. This says dove on the box.
Absolutely.
So
And it has a dove on the box.
Yeah, it has a picture of a
Right,
dove.
right. So you could, that doesn't mean you can't shoot quail with it or that you can't shoot rabbits with it or whatever. But, some people like that. And as you get more educated, if there was just, here's my ammunition and you got to go through the load line and say, well, this is 12 gauge, 7.5, ounce and a quarter, ounce and an eighth, whatever, and this is velocity I want. Not everybody's into the weeds like we are into those numbers. And so it just makes it easy.
Yeah. And so after heavy dove, obviously, what is the next step up from there?
So that's going to be the huge category of Express XLR. It's got the most SKUs, the most offerings, shot sizes. It's got all the gauges. So
There you go,
There
Andy.
you go.
410. It's got 28 in it. 20, 16, and 12. 2 3/4 inch in all the 12 gauge, 2 shots weights, ounce and 1/8, ounce and 1/4. So now we're moving up in the payload amount. You know, before we had 1 ounce, an ounce and 1/8 and 12 gauge, and now you can either get the ounce and 1/8, but you're going to really ramp up the velocity. These are running 1450, where before we were 1250. So 200 feet.
That's a lot.
You're getting up there, and then you're going to have again more shot with the ounce and 1/4. In 20, they're all 1 ounce. The 28s are 3/4, half ounce 410s, and then you have 2.5 and 3 inch 410s. So again, most SKUs, the most offerings, shot ranges. Some of these I'm seeing 2s all the way up to, on the small side, to 7.5. So yeah, you can do anything with the Express XLR. You know, maybe in 12 gauge. A little much for Dove. 1450 ounce and 1/8 is a healthy load. That would be probably you're crossing into this pheasant zone here. So you can definitely use that. And the smaller gauge stuff, you know, like 28 gauge, 3/4 ounce, 6s, 7.5s, you can shoot doves with that all day long, no big deal. So anyways, Express XLR general category, you can always find something regardless of what you're doing, whether it's rabbits, squirrels, doves, pheasants, whatever, you can find something in that category. And that's why we haven't brand specific said, oh, here's pheasant, here's dove, you know, whatever. So it's a catch-all.
Yeah. I will say a lot of people that I know that are like serious pheasant hunters, I'm talking have, you know, 5 to 9 bird dogs and focus mainly on pheasant. This is what they reach for. I can't say that I've ever heard of anyone shooting a rabbit with it, but I would do a good job.
Oh, yeah. No issues there. And again, like I said, you get the offerings in all the different gauges. Sub gauge is pretty popular right now. I know it's been ticking up in waterfowl. It's 3 inch 28, 16s, things like that. And so, you know, we've got those. If you want to go out and carry your classic gun and over and under whatever in your sub gauge, you know, Express XLR's got it.
Well, don't you shoot a 28?
I've got a 28. Yep.
Out in the field. I mean, not a lot of people now I feel like are leaning towards those sub gauges because, I mean, frankly, they just want to protect the shoulder nowadays. Yeah.
I mean, I've been shooting a 28. Now, granted, I haven't done wild pheasant with it, but I've shot, call it like game preserve type birds, you know, birds that were placed out. We took a dog in the field, you know, pointed them, flushed them up. So the distances that you're shooting are relatively close. I've dove hunted with the gun for years. I love it. You know, I'm to the point now where I don't need to, you know, I don't need to shoot a 12 gauge because I'm not worried about limiting it out every time and shooting the birds at whatever distance. You know, I can be specific and wait for the shots to be closer within the 28 because I just enjoy using the gun. I enjoy this. I enjoy the sub gauge. Yeah, it's not a heavy gun. Doesn't kick much. I can dump a box of shells in my pocket. And I'm not weighted down. It's not loud. And so, like I said, I just enjoy that. I like guns and ammo. I'm gunny, and so I enjoy using a 28. And so, yeah, like I said. But like I said, I know people the same way that shoot a 20 or 16 or whatever, and just whatever you want to use.
Yeah. One question I do have, I don't personally know the answer to this question. What would persuade someone to shoot a 2 3/4 inch versus a 3 inch versus a 3.5 inch?
So up till now, we haven't had anything in 12 gauge that crossed into the 3 inch category. Everything has been 2 3/4. In 410, we've got 2.5 and 3. In general, regardless of the category, because you'll see more of the 3 and 3.5s in waterfowl and turkey, you've got more room in the shell to put more pellets. And usually you're going to have a heavier payload because there's more volume in the shell now. It's longer, but rather than always just maxing it out with shot weight, since you have more room, you can get the velocity up too. So either way, it's going to be more, whether it's higher velocity and payload or higher payload at similar velocity, things like that.
More kick also associated. I shot a few 3 inches last year. Golly, it didn't take long before I decided that wasn't for me.
Yeah, you're like,
that and just staying on the gun. I mean, you know. You know, I don't always hit the bird in one shot. And I mean, there's a few times whenever you need to take a few shots at it that, I mean, you're coming out of the gun because it kicks that bad.
Yeah, picking your head up's never a good thing. Yeah. So I was just curious. We've gotten a lot of questions about, you know, hey, why don't you load 3.5s? So it's like, is that necessary? You know?
Well, for the stuff that we're talking about and the you know, upland and whatnot, no, you don't need it. You still get to use lead in a lot of areas. You're not having to use non-tox. In some areas you have to, but there's some alternatives if you want a like lead performance, with heavy shot or something like that. Bismuth is close, but we load 3.5 in all of our waterfowl line, and so and in turkey as well. That's where you're going to see the 3.5s really come into play.
Yeah, and not to like completely pivot to a different product, but we also load Premier Bismuth, which is an upland also load.
Oh yeah,
yeah. If you are in an area that needs non-tox or anything like that,
100%.
Here, Andy, hold it up. If you're in an area that needs non-tox or anything, Premier Bismuth is a really good option, and hits pretty good.
Oh yeah,
So,
it's very close to lead. And
Yeah.
the one thing I like about bismuth is it's malleable. So if you do have an older gun that's a fixed choke, especially a tight choke gun, and you have to use non-toxic shot, bismuth's a great option. It doesn't generate, choke strain like some of the harder materials do. So it's it's good option.
Yeah, definitely. So the next step after Express XLR, would that be the Nitro Mag?
Nope, not yet.
Okay.
So we're going to kind of branch off, and like I said, as your game gets bigger, your loads get heavier. So you're going to just move into kind of more pheasant-specific loads.
Gotcha.
And we've got pheasant, it's called pheasant loads. And, these are going to be, there's a little bit of overlap with pheasant and Express XLR in that specific category. But again, like we talked about earlier, we've got branded dove loads. So for that person that says, I'm not real savvy on my load line stuff, whatnot, I got invited on a pheasant hunt. Here's what do I need? Well, I can go buy a box of pheasant loads, and we've designed those to be adequate pheasant loads. So
In any situation.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
These loads here are probably going to be, especially in 12 gauge, more than what you're going to want for dove. You really don't need it. Too much shot, more recoil than what you really need. But you're talking your 1.25 ounce. The shot size is bigger, 4.56. We do have one in 7.5. It's also, like I said, it's an 1.25 ounce in the 12 gauge, 1/16 gauge, and 3 20s, and they're all 1 ounce. So, the 20 and 1 ounce, because it's a smaller gauge, the shot size is a little bigger than what you'd probably use for dove. It's 4.56. Where a lot of guys are shooting 7.5s and 8s for doves. So again, you can go buy a box of these. They're going to be good pheasant loads. The payloads are good. They're enough to be effective in harvesting a pheasant. Velocities are good. So kind of a bread and butter pheasant load. Yeah. So that would be, like I said, kind of similar to Express XLR, not necessarily a level of power above, but you're pulling out that brand specific, like these are pheasant loads.
Yeah. For people who might not know.
Yeah.
Yeah. What they need.
Yep.
So.
And then from there, where you're going to take a level up in performance and change it up just a little bit is Nitro Pheasant. So that one is going to have, you're going to have similar payloads. And then we even go up to 1 ounce and 3/8 now. So we're still going up in shot.
That's getting heavy.
Pheasant was only 1.25 ounces. Now we're grooving up. We've got 1.25 ounces at 1,400, but we've got 1 ounce and 3/8 at 1,300. So you got another 1 ounce and 1/8 a shot. Nitro Pheasant also has copper plated shot in it. It's 4% antimony. So kind of like Logan was talking earlier, longer shots, tighter patterns. It's going to penetrate deeper. The shot's not going to deform as much as the 2%. So that's going to be Nitro Pheasant.
Nitro Pheasants for your wild birds.
You can shoot the other ones with
Well,
it.
yeah, sure.
Absolutely,
Yep.
but-
Sure.
But you're getting into a category now where I've got velocity, I've got payload. I can reach out and touch something with authority when I need to, when the birds are coming fast. And yeah, you've got a healthy load. It's only in 12 and 20. But and then in 22 we step it up. So far we haven't seen anything over 1 ounce and 20, and now we've got some 1.25 ounce 20 gauges, and they're 3-inch. Yeah.
So big boys.
They're getting
Yeah.
bigger, more shot, more velocity, copper plated shot. So everything about the load is just bigger, beefier, hits harder.
So you hunt wild birds up in Kansas.
I do.
I mean, they get pretty far pretty fast.
Yeah, especially, at times we'll go late season, just after the first of the year. And I mean, you'll have a bird that gets up at 40, 45 yards and you want to take a shot at him.
Right.
So, I mean, this Nitro Pheasant kind of gives you the option to take a shot at him. You don't feel like you're outranging it. You've got enough velocity and you've got the high antimony shot that's copper plated that's going to penetrate properly. And it's also going to give you a good pattern at that range.
Because the denser, harder the shot, the more it's going to stay on track.
Well, it's
right?
not quite as dense. It's just higher antimony.
Just higher antimony. Gotcha.
Higher antimony makes it harder.
Yeah, it makes it harder, but slightly decreases density as we
Okay.
add antimony.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so there too, you're going to get the sparkle green color. You know, that's your premium.
Yeah.
You
You
know,
want the fancy shells.
Yep. So nitro pheasant's your fancy shell and 12 gauge.
And 20. Well, 20's yellow, obviously, but yes. Okay. So pheasant specific, obviously. I mean, again, you can shoot whatever you need to shoot with it, but we suggest that you hunt pheasants with it.
Yep.
And then we get into the Nitro Magnum.
Yep. So Nitro Magnum is even heavier payloads yet, and now we're getting into buffered shot. So we're adding a buffered material. I usually tell people if they haven't seen it or looked at it, you know, it kind of reminds you of salt or flour, you know, type of a consistency.
What's like the function of buffered?
So buffer's going to get in between all the voids of that shot as it's stacked within that shell. So for one, it's going to cushion it. So when you fire it and the payload accelerates down bore, you have setback and it's going to squat on itself. So if it's got cushion, you know, and the shot's just not all packed on top of each other, it's not going to be able to deform. So pellets that are that can stay round, you're going to have better patterns, you know, from an aerodynamic standpoint, and flow through the choke tube. So even if you take shot that's hard and it's going to stay round, if you put buffer in it, you're typically going to get better patterns because of flow through the choke.
I see.
You know, it's not going to spray it, so to speak, not going to blow your pattern. And so buffer, you know, and it says here in the catalog, Nitro Magnum, extended range buffered. You know, so that's the key is it's got buffer in it. You're going to get a tighter pattern. So therefore, if your pattern stays tight, you can shoot a little bit further distance and put more pellets on target. You typically see buffer in turkey legs.
I was going to say, like our nitros have those, the buffered.
Yep. And that's because you want a tight pattern because you're shooting turkeys in the head. And so, anyways, Nitro Magnum, you're getting into buffered loads. Payloads are, again, they're going up. So before we were up to 1 3/8 at the minimum in the Nitro Pheasant, and now in the 2 3/4 inch 12 gauge, we've got 1.5 ounces. So another 1/8 of an ounce a shot at 1260. And then in 3-inch Nitro Mag, we've got 1 5/8 and 1 7/8. So those are healthy loads. When you go look at the turkey line, the higher velocity turkey is going to be 1 3/4. And then if you want the higher payload with less velocity, it's going to be a 2 ounce and 3-inch. So we've split that difference here with Nitro Mag. So you could very easily shoot. These are crossover turkey loads, long range pheasant loads. It's 12 and 20. The 20 gauge is 2 3/4 and 3-inch. You're talking 1 1/8 and 1 1/4. So heavy 20s and the buffered.
Yeah.
So again, that's the key. That's the thing is if you want a buffered long range load, you go to Nitro Mag.
Yeah. So that's like a little bit different from the copper plate, like we were just talking about with the Nitro Pheasant, just because it has that buffering in there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. So not copper plated in Nitro Mag. It's your 2% antimony again, like we talked about. The only one that we've talked about so far that's copper plated 4% was Nitro Pheasant.
Yep.
So we went back down to the 2%, but we buffered it.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I would say, you know, if a rabbit runs across the field in front of you, you could probably snipe a rabbit with that too.
Oh yeah. Like I said, you know, yeah. I mean, if that's what you want to do. So again, when you talk about, do I want to go shoot doves with 1.5 ounces? No, I don't want to put myself through the punishment because you're going to shoot. I mean, a limit on doves is, I don't know, Illinois is 15. I don't know what it is. If that's most places, 15 birds. Yeah, I don't want to shoot an ounce. You know, I can usually kill about 15 birds in 16 shots. So.
Sure. I was going to say, you're not going to shoot other stuff once.
He gave us that one extra. Made sure he said 16. He didn't just say 15.
Yeah, but I don't want to shoot that many 1.5 ounce period sitting out there in a t-shirt and whatnot.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
just from a recoil standpoint, and you don't need it. You know, I'm sure there's some people that think they do, and maybe they want to shoot it, and more power to you. That's what pays the bills.
Yeah.
But you know, at the end of the day, you just don't need that much power for doves, and so that's why we've got Nitro Mag. Long range pheasants, got a rabbit on the box, it's got a pheasant on the box. And that's kind of where, you know, that's the intention to use it for.
Yeah. I mean, you could, on a day where you're like, I'm going to go turkey hunting. Oh, shoot, I don't have any turkey loads.
Oh, yeah,
You
Nitro
might
Mag.
could throw Nitro Mag in there.
Oh, 100%,
But,
yeah,
upland
absolutely.
for sure.
Yeah. And really the only other thing that we haven't talked about, and I know you've done another podcast on, is the Nitro Pigeon, which is kind of like a pheasant load. It's an ounce and a quarter, 1,300, but your shot size is just a little bit on the small side for what people may want for wild pheasants. We're doing it at 7.5s and 8s, and it's a sport load, but I wouldn't be afraid to go shoot, what I call like game bird type pheasants. No problem at all. I'd shoot that all day long.
I mean, yeah, I would hammer them. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Or I'd shoot you squirrels, shoot doves. It's a healthy dove load. Again, I don't want to shoot 16 of them, but it's definitely going to do the job. But if that's all I had, I'd shoot them.
Yeah. I mean, this has been lovely insight. I got to be honest. Growing up shooting dove in South Texas, we just kind of shoot what we got. Like whether it's a steel load or a turkey load or whatever, it's like it's going in the gun. That's what I'm shooting a dove with. So
interesting.
But it's good to know that there's stuff made for this out there.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We've tailored it to the level of recoil, the amount of shot to be effective. And give people an enjoyable experience. We're not going to put dove load on a nitro mag box and they're out there shooting turkey loads.
Right.
That's exactly. So, there's intent behind the design, behind the type of shell, buffered, not buffered, antimony content, payload velocity, all that. And we know that shooters have, they've got their preferences. You just said a while ago, you want to shoot 7.5s, and you've got reasons why. Now, whether or not that's data driven or if it makes Andy be confident. If I would have had a 7.5 in my gun, I'd have killed him.
He went out and he whacked them one day with the 7.5s, and forever it's always 7.5. That's what I usually see out of people.
Yeah, it's weird how that works. You go out and you limit out with a box of heavy dove, and then next time that's what you're always looking for in the store. You want that experience again, I guess.
Exactly, 100%.
I call that the juju too. Maybe there's a little bit to it. Oh, I've got the 7.5s in my pocket.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good
I'm gonna
day.
limit out today.
Yeah. I have a little during the springtime. I killed a turkey one time, and I had an orange in my pocket for like a little snack. And so sometimes
Don't you carry oranges now?
Yeah, if I'm feeling unlucky, I'll just slip a little orange in my pocket. It's like, okay, maybe we have a little extra luck today. So it's a mental thing.
No, 100%. Yeah,
I like it. Everyone's got their good luck charms, don't they, Logan?
They do. Yes, they do. Slight superstitions.
You might put an orange in your pocket. Who knows what will happen next year.
Well, yeah. Well, okay. So let's say you're in South Texas, shooting over a pond. Birds are coming in top of the trees. You're shooting a dove. What am I reaching for? Langenfeld?
Who you at? Oh, me. So if I'm going dove hunting, I'm going to take my 28 just because I enjoy using it.
Sure. So
if I look through the category here, where's 28 gauge? It's going to be an Express XLR and in 6s and 7.5s. I might have a little bit of both. I'm that kind of guy where I might carry two shot sizes. And, if I haven't been there before and it's like, so I'm going to stretch it out a little bit, might throw a 6 in there. But for most of the time, just general, it's going to be a 7.5 or an 8. Of course, there's not 8s listed here, so probably the 7.5. Just because I want a little more pellets in the load. Doves aren't huge. If you asked me if I was going to go shoot game bird pheasants with the 28, it'd be the 6s, bigger pellet, deeper penetration, hit them a little bit harder. So I'm going to lock in on 7.5 28 gauge.
I think that's a good answer.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Okay. We're going to stick with Andy with the pheasant question. Okay. So you're hunting on, what did you call it before? A reservation?
Yeah, game preserve.
Yeah, game preserve. You're looking at pheasants, shooting a pheasant. What do you want to reach for?
I usually, whenever I'm doing pheasant, I'm doing 5s, just
Okay.
all around, just a 2 and 3/4 5 shot.
Yeah.
Copper
You got
plated.
to pick a load.
Yeah.
Oh, copper plated. So
Yeah.
you're
There you
going,
go.
you're going nitro
I'll do
pheasant.
the nitro
going
He's going
pheasant.
yeah.
big boys.
Ounce and a quarter, ounce
So-
and 3/8.
Yeah.
Shoot, you're on a game preserve. You want to smack him.
Apparently so. You want to see those feathers poof.
Yeah, I mean it's a nice you go on a nice hunt. You want to capitalize. I'm with you. I like core luck shot
Either or,
too.
like we said earlier, it's the pheasant load's good budget load.
Yeah.
100%.
I'm with you. If I'm shooting at something, I want it to go down.
Yeah.
So, Logan, we already know your go-to game load. So, Langenfeld, what's a good scenario for him?
I think that I'm going to say kind of right up his alley. Kansas pheasant, wild bird, early season.
Early season.
Okay. I'm still probably going to stick with the nitro pheasant. However, instead of my late season go-to is going to be 5s, I might up it to 6s.
What about payload? There's 2 options.
Ooh,
Ounce and a quarter, ounce and 3/8. You want the speed or you want the payload?
I'll probably go ounce and quarter. In my opinion, if you're there, you're there.
Yep.
If you're on the bird, you're on the bird. You don't have to have that many.
You don't need
extra
more
pellets.
soldiers out there.
I'd just rather have a little extra speed. Maybe I don't have to lead him quite as much.
Speed kills.
Another controversial topic, John.
Logan's like, maybe not. Yep. Well,
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, Audrey, how about like South Carolina, Georgia, quail hunt, got the chaps on walking behind the bird dog. What are you going to use?
I'm with Andy, man. If I'm out there, I want them to go down.
Quail.
Yeah.
Quail.
I know they're
You
small.
want to eat them.
They're small. I probably, let's see here.
What gauge? What are you packing?
I'm always packing a 12 gauge.
Okay.
Sorry for him. Maybe if I get up there, I'm kind of leaning towards buying a 16 though. Mm-hmm. So if I'm going 16, I'm probably going to reach for a game load. I'm going to lean Logan here
Yep.
and I'm going to go game load. It's got that bigger, it's got for 16, we have 7.5s, we have 6s, we have 8s. So I might reach for a 7.5.
Perfect. Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, for quail.
We just
yeah.
need to go do it now.
I know.
That's right.
I know.
I'm getting antsy
I'm
now just sitting here talking
It's like
about
talking
it.
about
November
food and you
can't
get
come
hungry.
soon
It's like,
enough.
we're going to shoot birds. And it's like, geez, what are we going to do? I got to go back to work.
Right? No, yeah, I'm itching for some upland, and I know Andy's going this weekend, so I'm
I'm
very
getting
jealous.
a little lucky this weekend. So.
Yeah, where are you going? What are you doing?
Yeah, so I'm going to go to Indiana. So that's where I went to school, originally from Ohio. But I have a piece of property I have permission on, and it's a really good piece right next to the Wabash. So I'm meeting 3 buddies out there. My buddy Kobe, my buddy Adam, and my buddy Chuck. Chuck's got a dog, Brandy, who's a little, I think she's 3 now. She's wild yellow lab. So I think this will be her second hunt of the season. They said they hunted last weekend and they had some good luck. They were on some public on the one of the White River that runs the White and the Eel River in Indiana. They said she was off the walls. So and it's always that this time of the year. I feel like the dove's like the first. I was talking about this with Chase the other day. It's like the dove is like, all right, it's like starting. That's when everyone like the emotions are flowing high, and like from a marketing perspective, like that's a very valuable point to make a selling point to consumer.
Yeah,
and
100%.
yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be tomorrow, Saturday, and then Sunday, and I'm rolling out Sunday afternoon.
Yeah.
So it'll be a lot of fun. I'm excited.
Well, I hope you get into the birds, and everyone loves to watch a dog work.
Oh, absolutely. And
So-
hopefully I can bring back some jalapeno poppers for y'all.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're going to have to do
We're
that because I
expecting
didn't
it.
get an invite to the dove hunt.
I know. Oh, and we're doing a little bit of goose hunting too. So that's just kind of a bonus.
Just 'cause they're there.
They're there. So
Yeah. Well, keep us updated and
Absolutely.
probably check it out on our Instagram at Remington1816. There you have it, guys. Remington is on the rise. Like, comment, subscribe, and be sure to share this podcast with your hunting and shooting buddies. If you have any questions for me, the engineers, or Andy, you can email us at podcast@remington.com. Thanks for listening.